Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. Today we will analyze a strip published on November 15th, 1950, in which three iconic characters appear: Patty, Shermie, and our beloved Snoopy. This strip explores an unexpected theme, addressed with Charles Schulz's typical subtle humor. It all starts with a conversation between Shermie and Patty, who seems to be upset that she was not born a boy. Shermie, with his pragmatic demeanor, tries to reassure her, but he does so in his own unique way, offering an ironic perspective that culminates in a punchline that does not leave one indifferent. Snoopy's silent presence, observing the scene, adds further depth, making us reflect not only on the character's words, but also on what is not being said. This strip is a perfect example of how Schulz has managed, since the early years of Peanuts, to deal with complex topics with lightness and intelligence. Now, we will analyze each cartoon together, discovering curiosities, anecdotes, and hidden details that make this work even more special. In the first vignette, Shermie addresses Patty with a direct question. "Do you mean to tell me you're sad just because you weren't born a boy?" Patty, sitting on a step, appears clearly upset, with her hands between her legs. Snoopy, crouching beside her, listens to the scene with his eyes closed, probably in the sleep phase. Shermie's posture and fixed gaze on Patty suggests a rational and direct approach to the situation. This vignette immediately introduces the theme of the strip, a theme that, for 1950, might have seemed bold: reflection on gender roles and social expectations. In the 1950s, gender differences were strongly ingrained in the culture, and the idea that a little girl might wish she had been born a boy probably reflected the pressures Patty felt she faced. Interestingly, Schulz addresses this issue without judgment, using Shermie as a vehicle to explore the viewpoint of male rationality at the time. Snoopy, while not uttering any words, already begins to play his role as a silent observer. His position next to Patty creates a contrast with Shermie's more assertive attitude, emphasizing the dialogue between the two human characters. In the second vignette, Shermie, trying to console Patty, says to her, "That's nothing to feel bad about, Patty." Patty does not change her posture, continuing to look down with a distressed look, and Snoopy, still beside her. Shermie shows some empathy, while still maintaining her direct and practical tone. In this vignette, we see an example of how Schulz uses dialogue to develop the character's character. Shermie, with her pragmatism, represents a comforting figure, although her approach lacks the sensitivity that Charlie Brown, for example, would likely have displayed. Patty, on the other hand, embodies vulnerability and emotional fragility, making her a character many people could identify with. Snoopy continues to maintain his silent, but significant role. Even without words, her presence seems to suggest that she is observing and judging the situation in her own way. It is one of the earliest examples of the role Snoopy will play in future strips, a character who, while not speaking, communicates so much through his expressions and postures. In the third vignette, Shermie continues his speech with a broader observation. "It could have been much worse." His expression is more serious, almost philosophical, as Patty looks up at him, perhaps intrigued or confused by his words. Snoopy, still next to Patty, seems to tilt his head slightly, as if trying to figure out where Shermie is going with this. This vignette represents the transitional moment in the strip, where emotional tension begins to turn into broader reflection. Shermie's seemingly simple sentence opens the door to many interpretations. What does she mean by worse? It is a phrase that can be read as a universal truth, an invitation to look at things from a different perspective, or simply as a way to downplay Patty's feelings. Patty's reaction is a perfect example of Schulz's mastery of depicting complex emotions with just a few lines. Her gaze suggests a mixture of hope and skepticism, while Snoopy, once again, adds depth to the scene with his quiet curiosity. In the fourth vignette, Shermie concludes his speech with the punchline, "You might have been born a dog." Patty lowers her gaze again, while Snoopy, struck by the sentence, turns to Shermie with an expression of disbelief. It is a moment of pure humor, completely reversing the reflective tone of the previous vignettes. This vignette is a perfect example of Schulz's subtle and unpredictable humor. Shermie's joke not only breaks the emotional tension, but also adds a whole new dimension to the strip. Snoopy, who up to that point had remained in the background, suddenly becomes the center of attention, turning the scene into a reflection on the identity and perceived value of humans versus animals. Snoopy's reaction is particularly significant. Although he is a dog, his expression suggests a sense of wounded dignity, almost as if he feels insulted by Shermie's statement. It is one of the earliest examples of how Schulz uses Snoopy to explore deeper themes, such as the animal condition and its relationship with humans. The November 15th, 1950 strip is a perfect example of Charles Schulz's narrative genius. With few characters and minimal dialogue, he manages to deal with complex issues such as identity, social expectations, and dignity, all with gentle and intelligent humor. Shermie, with her pragmatism, represents rationality, while Patty, with her vulnerability, embodies human emotions. Snoopy, while not speaking, adds depth and humor to the scene, proving once again why he is one of the most beloved Peanuts characters. This strip reminds us that even in the most difficult situations, there is always room for a smile. Charles Schulz invites us to reflect on life, identity, and relationships, giving us a work that, even decades later, continues to excite and entertain.
Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next, friends.